There we go. All right, welcome everybody. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. It's a great sunshiny morning here in Stevens Point. We've had some terrific weather after a couple of weeks of plenty of rain and wet and cloudy conditions. So I hope all your football fields are drying out and everybody's getting games played as scheduled. Everything else is going well for you. School-wise, getting everybody back at school. It's always an exciting time of year. So we're really happy to have you helping us and coming by. So far, we've got about 7 folks on board. And what we do is keep allowing anyone to add on if they'd like to. But this is our 3rd Zoom meeting. In this one, we're going to try to focus in on some of the things that fall sports, the end of the seasons, the tournament series, October, things like this start to bring towards issues that you need to cover. So again, first of all, mute yourselves just so that we can't hear anything. But if you have a question, it's such a small group, at least initially here, don't be afraid to unmute yourself and ask a question of anyone as we're going through the presentation. Secondly, we do have the Zoom group chat that is available to you, so feel free to use that. We'll respond to questions that way. And we continue to have the Google document that you can go to if you still have that available on your computer. So all of those things are available and easy to do. I just would also like to mention that our next meeting will be Thursday, October 11th at 1 p.m. And those will be a variety of workshop topics. The actual WIAA workshop and LTI classes, we'll just talk about those a little bit because those will be coming up in November. Winter athletic code meetings, fall sport wrap-up, state tournament preparation. And we also want to talk a little bit now about our official center and the updating that we've done there as far as the website and rankings are concerned. So some good topics for cover once October rolls around. But to get things rolling this morning, we are going to go with enthusiastic Stephanie Hauser. We're going to give her the whole keypad. And this is really an important topic for you, seating, meetings, and how to handle things. And Stephanie's all prepared and does a great job helping with all this. So Stephanie, go ahead. She's going to load up her document and take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Just got a PowerPoint I want to open up for you real quickly here to walk you through hosting a seating meeting. First of all, has anybody been notified yet that you are going to be hosting a seating meeting this fall? Okay, I didn't hear any yays to that one, but if you do get notified that you are hosting one and you're a little apprehensive about it, if you feel like this isn't enough for you, this little presentation, just call us and we'll walk you through it, okay? So don't worry. Most of you have been a coach, a head coach, and you've sat through a seating meeting and participated in one, either in person or electronically. So it's really no different. You're just on the other side of the table. All right, first of all, how do you get selected to host a seating meeting? WIAA staff sends out an email at the appropriate time of the year to request hosts. So we do ask for volunteers. We don't often have to assign you without volunteering, but on occasion we do have to if we did not get any volunteers from your grouping. If you're selected, the WIAA staff will notify you. You know, you're not going to have to go online to find out that you're a seed meeting host. So you will get a direct contact from our office notifying you that you are hosting. If you go to the WIAA website and pick any sport, we're going to pick volleyball because that is going on this fall. This is where you find those seating meeting materials. It's going to be under rules and regulations. And then over on the side under tournament procedures, and that's pretty consistent from sport to sport. You'll find it looks almost identical. So you're going to scroll down until you get to those tournament procedures and seating meetings. Keep on going here. All right. A lot of the seating meeting language is consistent from sport to sport, but there are some small variances. So make sure that you do go in and print this out so you've got this handy and review exactly what you're going to need to do to host a seating meeting, okay? Feel free to jump in if you have any questions as we move along, okay? Now, I was selected to host a seating meeting. What should I do? Back to that same spot on the girls volleyball page. There are very specific seating meeting materials for both you as a host and your coach. You do have to be logged in though to get to some of those specific materials. So the first one you just saw was not login specific. Anybody from the general public can see those tournament procedures. But to get the specific coach or AD seating materials, you've got to be logged in. Again, go to the sport. Now, right here in the middle under WIAA tournament information, you're going to see seating materials. Everything you need is going to be right here. Procedures, which we just looked at in the other, under tournament procedures. This is if you are hosting. This is stuff that your coach will need, the season summary results, the team ranking form, the grid. So everything that you need is here. This bracket is important for you to have as a host. This is really, truly just a worksheet, though, for you to use while you're in the meeting, because before you end your meeting, you're going to report all your results on the WIAA Score Center. So this is, again, just kind of a visual for you and for the coaches to use while you're at the seating meeting. Any questions so far? All right. Some sports require the host to ask participating schools to vote on the method, either in person or electronic. So again, review those materials. And if you as the host are required to get a majority vote, then you've got to send an email out to all of those athletic directors asking if they prefer an in-person seed meeting or an electronic seating meeting. Once you know what kind of seating meeting you're going to host, in-person or electronic, then you'll share all that information with the school. So time, date, location, the method of the meeting, get that out to schools as soon as you know so they can start planning appropriately. All right, if you are hosting an in-person meeting, I will tell you as an athletic director, I'm probably biased, but this is by far the easier seating meeting to host, the in-person. It is much easier for you. You get people there, it's all done and gone. It's very efficient. Hosting it electronically, I know for travel purposes, the coaches like that, but again, it's just not nearly as efficient of everybody's time. So if you can, I would recommend hosting in person versus online. So here are some keys. Get there early. Make sure you are completely set up before people walk in the door. Have something that you can have a visual display, such as a smart board, a dry erase board, something that you can show them the votes. Plan on about 2 coaches from each school. Some will only bring 1. We are asking that they not bring more than 2, but again, make sure you've got enough chairs and table space ready for everybody. If you can provide refreshments, that really is a nice thing to do. We understand that that's not always possible, and it certainly is not necessary. But if you can, it is a nice little personal touch you could add. Make sure you got extra paper, pens and pencils for tie breaking. That's always done by a secret ballot. So you want to have those papers ready for that. Have a calculator ready. Always want to be able to check your math. Review all those seating documents from the WIAA website I just showed you underneath seating materials. Have your computer there so you can enter your results in the WIAA Score Center. And it's nice to have a copy machine close by so you can actually make hard copies of that paper pencil bracket so coaches can walk out with that. Then this is a document that I am happy to share with you if you'd like it. This is something I created when I was the AD at SPASH and I was hosting a basketball seating meeting. It just kind of runs through exactly what I just kind of covered with you, a step-by-step checklist of hosting a seating meeting in person. Introduce everybody, go around the table to update their season summaries, give them some reminders about how the seating procedures are going to go, randomly draw for order of presentation, time their reports, they get 3 minutes max. Then coaches fill out the ranking sheets, can't rank their own school. Publicly record those ballots, add up the scores, give them the rank order. If there's any ties, you break those first. If there aren't any ties, you go ahead and go from appeals, from the bottom up. So again, if anybody wants a copy of this, I've got it on Google and I can share it with you. Just send me an email and I can get that to you. All right, let's jump back to our next slide, which would be hosting an electronic meeting. Again, a lot of coaches are leaning towards want to do these electronically. So a lot of ADs have great ways of hosting electronically. It used to be done predominantly via email, but a lot more ADs are now going towards using Google Docs or Google Hangouts or things like that. So I've got some samples of things that we've done here in the office, or also that ADs have shared with us. Here's a checklist for hosting via email. You want to give them the timeline in advance. They know exactly how it's going to go. So give them the calendar dates, tell them exactly what they're going to need, be specific in who they should send things to. And again, I have this on Google. If anybody wants a copy of this, happy to share that with you. Hosting a seating meeting via Google. Wait, let me give you the other one first. This is kind of a cool way to collect season summaries. Even if you're going to host an in-person seating meeting, it's kind of nice to set this up in advance. This was what we used for state softball last year, and you just set up the Google form and set up a tab for each school where they can go in and just copy and paste their entire season summary, and then this is viewable to all of the schools in advance. So again, that's a kind of a nice way to have that season summary information available for all those coaches. And then we'll go back to this one. And again, this is just kind of the same thing you saw before. It's just kind of a step-by-step way to host a Zoom meeting or an electronic seating meeting. Let me know if you want any of those documents shared with you. Showed you this one already. You saw what that looked like. If you want to do your voting via Google Forms, it's, that's fairly simple to set up as well. I'm sure you guys are pretty versed in using Google Forms. You can just set these up as a drop down. So they go in, they select their school. And I thought I had showing how to vote, but if you could imagine, the next question down would say number one seed. And again, it's a drop down and they choose which school would be the number one seed and so on and so forth till you get down to your last seeded teams. And then, with Google Forms, it just automatically adds those up for you. So that's nice too. Ties and appeals, just make sure you really understand that language prior to the meeting. Sometimes it gets a little confusing. And of course, when everybody's sitting there and everyone has an opinion, it can be just a little overwhelming at times. So just make sure you understand how to break ties and how to handle appeals prior to the meeting, and call us in advance if you have any questions or aren't quite sure how that's going to go. And most of us have our cell phones pretty handy at this time of the year when you're starting CD meetings and such. So don't hesitate to shoot a text or give a call if you're in the middle of a meeting and not quite sure how to handle it. We'd rather have you give us a call and get it right than have everyone leave and then find out later that you didn't really follow the proper procedures. So don't hesitate to give us a call here in the office. Okay, at this time, if there's anybody that has questions and they want to unmute, I'm happy to take those or send them to us through chat.
Anybody have anything for Stephanie?
Jeremy Hansen, Elma Center, Lincoln. I was just wondering, hi, nice to see you guys. Thanks for doing this, by the way. I was wondering if you had a list, or if there is a list somewhere that I can find of meetings that are able to conduct electronically versus ones that require in-person meetings.
Well, we really haven't put anything like that together. We have, to this point, Jeremy, allowed the host to determine how they would like to handle those things, and then tried to assist and provide counsel on whichever direction your preference is. I would also add some folks are even considering Zoom meetings now as far as seed meetings go. So this is new technology that's starting to get out into the schools and is available at very low cost to anyone. So there's lots of different methods, and whatever you decide is going to be your best, we're ready to help you handle that.
Okay, so then maybe I misunderstood then. Every sport is open to an electronic meeting?
No. I think I understand what you're saying, Jeremy. We have not compiled a list of which sports exactly.
Right,
I think that's a great idea. We could do that. But for now, what I would suggest is if you're going to sign one, again, you just got to go to those tournament procedures, and it'll tell you in the first couple of bullets whether you are required to host in person or you can give that choice. I want to say I think basketball is required to be in person, or soccer, one of those two. Basketball is required. So there are fewer that say you must do it. There are most of the sports give you the choice.
Okay.
But
all right.
I think that's definitely something we could compile. That'd be pretty easy to do here.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
All right.
Anybody that wants those documents, I got a couple of messages. Anybody that wants those documents, can you just shoot me an email, and I'll just hook you up on the Google Doc to make sure you've got those.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yep, you bet.
Very, very, very well done. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to move over to Wade Lebecki, and Wade's going to take care of two different, oops, I got to go the other direction with my camera work and everything. And Wade's going to be talking about two different areas. First of all, he's going to handle coaches eligibility. This is a key one for you this time of the year, simply because of the end of the season coming up. And then secondly, uniform ordering and everything. Wade, go ahead.
Well, the first thing that I would tell you is that if you go to your season or your senior high handbook, and underneath bylaws, remember bylaws are the conduct of the school. If you go to those, that section, and you go to page 28 and page 29, you will see the requirements for coaches. And the first requirement is that they are licensed to teach. So when you look at that section there, if they have a Wisconsin teaching license, that's all that they need in order to coach. The second set of instructions is under section 3, and it's coaches not licensed to teach, and that's your lay coaches. When you have a coach who's not licensed to teach, they will be required to have a class that's called coaching principles, and then another class that is underneath first aid. So those two requirements have to be done for CNLTs, as we call them, or coaches not licensed to teach. In addition to that, you have to complete a form, one time for each coach, and it's online underneath AD resources, I believe, and it's called Coaches Not Licensed to Teach. And you complete, or you list each coach that's not licensed on that form, and you send $10 in for the entire form. So if you have 5 coaches on there, you just send in $10. Those coaches are required to have coaching principles and first aid within the first year that they coach. And I would tell you at the end of the season, you'll want to go ahead and make sure that they are aware that they need to have those requirements. There was an exception for coaches who have been coaching since 1994 and 95. They are grandfathered in. They do not need those two requirements. Another piece that is required of the coaches is that they have to take the coach's exam, the sport exam, and they have to watch the sport video, which also includes a quiz at the end, and they have to click the button for finish to get credit for that. That is something that you should look at with your coaches before the season has ended. Several years ago, we did try to make that a requirement, and if they didn't fulfill that requirement, they would not be allowed to coach in a tournament. That failed at the membership meeting, but it's something that you should still check on for your coaches to make sure that they've met that sport rules exam and sport rules meeting requirement. Stephanie, if they are ejected, will remind you on whether or not they've taken that and fulfill those two requirements. The other thing that coaches must complete is if they are paid coaches, they must have first aid, CPR and AED training, and they must be certified in that. The schools, you determine whether the program met the certification or not, but they should get a card, usually a 2-year card from one of those organizations that they have taken and fulfilled that requirement. So essentially, a teacher is automatically allowed to coach. If they're not licensed to teach, they have to take the coaching principles course and a first aid course. And I would tell you that once they fulfill those 2 requirements, you keep that on file in your office. I had a 3-ring binder, had each coach's name in there, and then had copies of their certifications for coaching principles and first aid. I also had them when they did we didn't have videos at the time. When they did the in-person, I had recorded the date that they did that, and I also recorded their exams because we kept copies of that. You now have that electronically in the school directory, but you should make sure and check that those coaches have fulfilled that. We're halfway through football. It's a good time to check. It's halfway through all of our sports, fall sports. It's a good time to check and see that they've met that. If they haven't, I would go ahead and have them do that. So that's the basic requirements for coaching qualifications.
So go ahead. Ordering uniforms is next.
Ordering uniforms is a different one. I remember that as being an athletic director, and we always had to come up with a system. And when I was at Baldwin Woodville, we would order home uniforms 1 year, and the next year we would order our visitors' uniforms. And it got quite expensive, and I think eventually we went to a 4-year rotation. But when you are ordering uniforms, the first thing that you need to do is to make sure that your coach, one, knows what the home uniform is. In most sports, if I'm correct, and these guys would know better than I am, white is the home jersey. The exception is football.
Soccer also, I think, just
Now,
changed.
soccer
this
is
year,
just changing, as Stephanie is saying as
just
well.
this year, yeah.
So I had made up my own chart in an Excel spreadsheet. I had the sport, and then I listed the home. The first column after the sport was the home color, light or white or dark. In football, it's white. It's not light. And then the away jersey in the next column. And then I put the year in that we had last ordered. So then the next year was 4 years from that. So if it was 18, then the next ordering year was in 22. And I kept that just to make sure that I took care of the girls' programs as well as the boys' programs. I didn't want to go ahead and have different years because, in fact, at Baldwin, football was every 2 years and all the other sports were 4. So when I became the athletic director, I changed football to 4 as well. In your rule books, you'll find the uniform rules. So as an example, football is on page 18 in the football rule book. And this is where your coach has to have that information because in the football rule book, it's an NFHS rule on uniform colors. It's not WIAA rule. So when you look at the football rule, it tells you the home jersey and it tells you the information about the away jersey. And the football rule actually is quite complicated. So when you're ordering jerseys for football, the white jersey has to be white on top of the shoulders. It has to be white on the front body and white on the back of the body. There cannot be colors on the shoulders other than numbers and mascots. I always tell people that when you're ordering uniforms, make sure that you check with me on football uniforms because they're expensive. And if you order the wrong one, it's going to be costly to go ahead and reorder them. The other issue with football is, remember, they got to cover the pads. So in football, the new jerseys are the college model. And what people don't pay attention, if you watch the college games on Saturday or you watch pro on Sunday, they've got different pads that barely cover their shoulders now. Those jerseys don't cover your high school pads. Your high school pads stick out. So you have to make sure that when you're ordering football uniforms that you are ordering the proper uniforms. When you go to baseball, that rule is in Rule 1 as well. Baseball uniforms essentially say that you got to have a number on there and they all have to be the same color. And there is no home or away. So that's the difference that you'll see in the uniform rules. So make sure that if you're considering ordering uniforms, that your coach reads that, understands that section. In wrestling, we do have a WIA rule pertaining to wrestling, and that states that you can't have anything other than your mascot on the uniform or the wrestler's name on the back of the uniform. Any other you can have the logo on there, but any other wording is not allowed. And that became a sportsmanship issue 3 years ago, so we added that rule in there. So once again, if you're going to order uniforms, make sure you check with the rule of the sport before you even consider ordering them, and make sure that your coach is well aware of what the requirements are for their sport, because they do vary. And it's understand that those are NFHS rules. I've told the NFHS that I would like to stay away from uniform changes and field changes because of that. It changes so much, it gets confusing for our schools. In fact, I think, Steph, weren't they talking about a volleyball change for uniforms too?
They were talking about it, but we begged them not to touch it.
So we try to keep uniform rule changes to a minimum. But I tried to set up an ordering schedule to make sure that everybody was treated the same, that we rotated our home and away. So on a 4-year schedule, if I ordered home jerseys in 18, I would order away jerseys in 22. So I had that kind of rotation so I could budget for it. And I also tried to make sure that basketball ordered girls and boys on the same years. They might order different colors, but I order them on the same years. So I'm not sure if the other athletic directors here have anything else to add to that.
I would just add just a little bit. This is Tom, and swimming-wise and so forth, just a couple of things for you to be aware of with swimming is, that's one where you have to be careful of the uniform and what type of logo, school logo that you put on there. You're limited in size on those things. There's a couple of different embossed types of material as well, where it integrates into the woven material. So that's one just to pay attention to. In hockey, for instance, you can go to colors other than white for light colors, and all these different issues come up on you. Check out the National Federation book. Also has situations that will help you with those things whenever they come up, but we certainly are here to help as well anytime you get ordering issues that come your way through your coaches. Does anybody have, Wade, first of all, thank you. That's great presentations on both sides. Thanks so much for all of that. Anybody have any questions for Wade? Anything that you're involved with ordering uniforms or with your coaches? I think that coaching one right now is one to take some time to look over once again. Make sure everyone's meeting your certifications, their certifications, and that you're getting everybody all set, reminding them that by next year they have to have that as well. Go ahead.
And one other thing to add is that I did get an inquiry today. They're trying to fill their soccer coaches opening for girls soccer. However, the coach is a club coach, and the coach has been coaching during the school year out of season. Keep in mind, if you are looking and posting your openings, that if a coach has been coaching club, once the school year began, they actually are not a candidate to fulfill that spot. And if it's an emergency and you can't find anybody else, we can talk about that. But it's important that everybody is aware of the coaching contact rule, because they can eliminate themselves from being a candidate to fill an opening if they've had contact out of season during the school year. So as you're starting to look at your assistant coaches for the winter and head coaches for the winter, hopefully you have those filled, head coaches. Or if you're looking for coaches in the spring, and this includes volunteers, if they've had any coaching contact out of season during the school year, they are not candidates. So they have had extra coaching experience. So if you have questions on that, feel free to email me or call me at any time so we can find that. If there's emergencies, we can help you out and try to come up with some solutions with that. But just be aware of that.
Great. Any questions that anybody has? Give you a moment. All right. If not, what we're going to do is we're going to move just to Wade's left and introduce Cassie McGettigan is our business manager and handles everything. Thank you, Wade. And she does a great job with everything out of her office. And this is getting to be a time of year now where you're going to start to deal with financial responsibilities and financial forms to our office. So completing them and completing those reports is something Cassie has put together a little PowerPoint to help you with and identify where those things are located on our WIAA website. And I think you'll find this to be extremely beneficial as you complete either hosting a regional, subsectional tennis, and then sectional meets, all those things that need to get finished.
Share, hold out.
Yep.
Give us 1 second. We're just
We'll
going to
get it right there.
Yep.
We'll share.
Screen. All right, now you can maximize your PowerPoint.
So please help me welcome in Cassie.
There you go.
Give her a big round of applause.
Hey, Cassie.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. As you are finishing up your regular season and getting into your regional and sectional events, this is where I come into play and talking about financial forms that you need to report to us. So for any regional and sectional game that you host, we require a financial form to be turned in. There are 2 sports that we do not require this, golf and tennis, mainly because you do not have admission for these events. So we automatically just send out a whole school allowance check and a manager's check to your school about 2 weeks before your event. You will see that the school check will come to your principal and the manager check will also be in that envelope. Next, for all of the other sports, you can find your financial forms on the AD resource page. We have moved down a little bit, so you have to scroll down a little bit on the page to find the tournament financial forms. As you can see here, we have the fall sports, the winter sports, and the spring sports. So if you click on the fall sports, it will drop down and it'll have all of the fall sports listed. You can first read the informational letter for each sport, and that just kind of gives you an update on the year, any changes that have happened that we need to have you report, changes in ticket prices or officials' allowances. And it also gives you reference to the season regulations if you need to go into a little bit more detail. This is what the form looks like. This is the football form. So you will need to enter in all of
That is from one of the outside resources. There we go. Thank you.
Okay. So for when you get to the form, you will need to fill in all of the information in the tan colored cells. When you open the form, and if you want to try and select a cell that is not tan, you will not be able to enter in anything into it. So fill in all of the information. And then the manager check here, see the little red note. For example, football, the check is payable by the host school. There are some sports that we will send the manager check for, and those sports are cross country, track, softball, and baseball. So any other sport that you host, you will need to be responsible for sending that manager check to that manager. And then for the officials, you'll see the mileage reimbursement is 45 cents per mile, and the officials should ride together, but we know that some circumstances the officials live on the north side of town or the south side of town, so they're not able to ride together. So you just split that mileage between the officials based off of the longest official's mileage. And just to give you guys a little example here, here is a form, okay, that has kind of been filled out, and you see, clicking all sorts of things here.
So you have some big time officials coming in.
I know, right? So you'll see that I did not fill in the whole school name, so then there are some of these cells that have not auto-calculated. So you want to make sure that you fill in every single cell so that form completes correctly. And so this is my completed form. So I filled in my high school name and my tickets, and you can see that all the cells have calculated properly. And at the bottom here, this is what you owe to the WIAA. You can send your completed form to the finance email that I have listed, and then I will send out an invoice to you as the athletic director, and you can send that to your accounts payable department. And even though you might not receive an invoice right away, you can get that payment processing if that is okay with your finance department, and get that check processed. An example over here, if you do not bring in enough ticket revenue, your financial form might be a deficit. So then we would send you a check to cover your expenses. And those checks are sent out about 3 weeks after the final state tournament. So for example, for fall, that would be the football. So coming the beginning of December, those checks would be mailed out. And that also comes with your state travel reimbursement if you do qualify for the state tournament. A little bit of a common confusion that we have is for state tournament travel, we do not have a form that you fill out for all of the sports to say, okay, we traveled this many miles, we had this much in hotel fees and meal fees. So the only sport that we have a form for is swimming. It's very simple, easy to find on either the boys or the girls swimming page. You can see here under tournament information. You can find that form and fill that out. Otherwise, every other sport, I just calculate the allowances here in the office and mail out those checks. If you ever have any questions about how much of your reimbursement is for hotel, how much is for meals, how much is for mileage, you can just send me an email or give me a call and I can break that down for you, no problem. Otherwise, those allowances are also listed in the season regs for each sport.
Cassie, this is Todd. Just a couple questions. Looking back at the financial report, we will get, it seems each season we'll get a question from an athletics director regarding radio fees and how to record that. And as you can see on the form that Cassie had just reposted here, you'll see that under ticket sales, child, student, adult, online sales, children under 6. You'd also have radio fees. The radio fees and the radios are already aware that, or are made aware in their materials that we send them from this office, that the check is made out to the host school for the radio fees. Now, in cases where you may have games that are being live streamed, and again, those are under rights fees. Therefore, there's rights fees that will be gathered for those events. Those are not on this fee. Those this form, those are just identified, and then a check will come to the whole school from the NFHS network. Their portion, your portion of the rights fees for the live stream will come your way. Now, it takes several months to get that processed and paid through Atlanta, but those are not identified on here and on the form.
Okay. And my last slide here, just a few other topics in the finance department. We do accept ACH payments and we do pay via ACH. So if your district is set up to do so, you can contact me and I can give you the form to complete so we get our payments in a little bit faster and save a few trees so we don't have to cut those checks. And another topic, state tournaments. There are some state tournaments where we send your school a box of tickets to sell in advance so your fans can have a ticket in hand before they arrive to the event. Just a few common courtesies that we like. We would like to return all the tickets unsold tickets to us as soon as possible so we can get an accurate count on attendance and how many people are going to be showing up. Payment, you can send your payment with the tickets, preferably as a check and not in cash. We don't like to have people showing up with thousands of dollars worth of cash in hand. It's not very safe. And also, if you can't get a check cut in time to send with the person returning the tickets, you can always just mail it to our office after the tournament. And that is all that I have. So if anybody has any questions.
Go ahead, and anyone on mute?
Stop share.
Yep.
Right below.
Right, that red one.
Yep.
There you go.
There you
Excellent.
go.
Any questions by anyone? Wonderful. All right. We will keep rolling along. We know that Kate is in a meeting, and so we're going to make sure that she's getting freed up. But we're going to pass the keyboard over to Todd Clark, and Todd's he's got a little presentation for you as far as reporting scores. This is a bigger and bigger element of everything that we do, and especially during the football season, we need your scores, right, Todd? And we got to get things rolling on this. This is vital. that scores come into us during the tournament series. So Todd's going to talk a little bit about reporting scores and how he'd like to have you making it easy for you to do so as well.
Sure. Before I get into the reporting scores, just want to go back and touch base a little bit on the video streaming. In addition to, you don't have to record that on the financial forms. One thing that you should be made aware of, we do have forms that the media have to fill out, either it be for audio, the radio side of it, or video on the streaming side of it, that we receive in our office. The media are also instructed to contact the host athletics director to make arrangements for any type of WI tournament broadcast, any transmission. So you should be receiving a call prior to the event. The worst thing we want to have happen is a member of the media, either on the radio side or on the streaming side, show up unannounced, and that causes all kinds of problems. So there are required forms that they need to fill out. And if it is a video stream, you will be contacted probably by Tim Connect, who is a partner of ours with formerly Play On Sports, now with Rush Media, that will let you know that such a media entity plans on live streaming your event, and he'll work through the details with you on that, and he will provide that clearance from our office to you, providing you the permissions from the media that we have give them clearance. So just a FYI on that. Yeah, as far as reporting scores, we're starting to get into it a little bit now, more and more as we move towards the tournament series. Since week 1 of football, because all teams are not in the playoffs and do not all qualify, only the 224 that get into the playoffs, we need to keep a database. And that database takes all the scores and produces on the last game, the night of the last game, the playoff qualifiers. Now, throughout the course of the year, now starting with week 5, we produce a contenders report at the end of this weekend. So it's imperative that if we're going to have an accurate contenders report, we need all the football scores in. And it doesn't matter if you're 0-5 or 5-0. The calculations in the database determines who would be in the playoffs if the playoffs started, well, after the 5th week's game, the 6th week's game. So everybody kind of knows where they're at heading into the 9th week of the season. So, and very imperative, too, that on that last weekend, that last game, that we get scores as soon as possible. Because, as I said, we cannot calculate any of the playoff field until every score is reported into the database, and that comes by the ADs entering it into the database after their games. And we try to promote getting those scores in about a half hour, maximum of half hour after the game is played now through the end of the season, so that number one, they are available. People are looking at those scores, and really the interest in football increases as we move closer to the playoffs. And outside of football, as far as reporting scores, once the volleyball tournament starts, the boys soccer starts, those team sports, we need those scores in as soon as possible after the event. Number of things that happen. Number one, your next opponent will be looking at who they're going to be playing, and unless that score gets reported, they're not sure where to get that score, whether from the media or however they're going to find it. So get that score in as soon as possible. In addition, our staff here continually looks at future games and the next game to see the official assignments. So as soon as you get that in, they can begin that process of getting your officials. So very important on the expedience after a game to get that score in an accurate manner, so we have the right team moving forward. And when the moment that you enter that score, it is updated in the database, but it takes about 8 to 10 minutes for it to regenerate on the brackets. So if you're on the late end of that, every 10 minutes refreshing, it might be within seconds. If not, it might take a few minutes for those to show up on the brackets. So again, if for score reporting, and I don't think we've had much issue with members that are on the conference call with the football scores this fall. But as a reminder, you just go under the report scores on our homepage and follow the pretty logical steps and navigating through that and reporting the score. Because you being the athletic director at the school and having permissions, that gives you only your games to be able to put in the score. So thank you.
Great job, Todd. Any questions for Todd on scoring? The value of it is, we can't even tell you how important it is for all of us to have all of that taken care of. Are you gonna move over? You can stay right where you are.
Oh, will the camera
Yeah.
get over there?
We can get a
Zoom you
camera.
over here?
Yeah, I can zoom you
Okay.
over here. We will take care of this. Kate has joined us. Welcome, Kate, and great to have you as part of our presentation with everything. There she is.
Hi.
Wave to everybody. Hey, Kate is going to, as everyone knows, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so you get a lot of requests for pink types of contests, wearing uniforms, use of pink, and along with fundraising events that go along with them. So Kate's going to take some time to share information on how to handle the pink event. And thanks so much for doing that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
All yours.
Thank you very much. So hosting a pink event, as you know, this is a movement that has become really strong I think it began back in 1991, but a lot of people are really joining this and looking for ways to really be a part of this movement. So I think the pink game has become something that schools can use both to raise money and to just raise awareness. So the questions are, what are you allowed to do based on the WIAA rules? We want you to be very knowledgeable about that before you make decisions of how you're going to host the game or what you're going to do. So some of the questions that we're getting are about what you're allowed to wear, what is allowable for a pink game, anything from shoelaces, shoes, jerseys, hair ribbons, all kinds of things like that. And I want you to know that there's a place that you can go, and if somebody can show me how to share this screen, I'll be able
Yes,
to.
you can.
There we go.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
Screen. Screen.
Yep.
No, share.
You gotta go back.
She's scared.
Did I do it? Nope.
Close that.
She's scared.
That
There
one.
you go. Go ahead. Don't say. Okay, now close that.
Okay.
And then
Am I closing this?
Close it.
Yep.
Now you'll have to open up the internet.
Far left.
That's good.
And then volleyball's at the top. I'm gonna just pick it, Kate.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Okay, so back at our main screen here, you'll see that many of the sports have some really good language that will guide you in determining what's legal and what isn't. So if you go into our main page and you go under sports and you choose, this is volleyball, for example, which is a good example. Over here on the side, you'll see the rules and regulations. If you click on rules and regulations, you will get this screen. Let's see. Am I in the right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, here
Mhm.
it comes. All right. All of this, or many of the sports have this box, rules and regulations, and in that box, you'll find hosting a pink event. And as I said, it's a little bit different for each sport, so you'll want to take a look at this. So each sport will go through and tell you if you're able to alter the ball and what has to be present. For example, the NFHS authenticating mark has to be present on the ball. Uniforms for volleyball, it's different than for other sports. Like for soccer, the pink uniform would only be able to be worn as the home uniform or the dark uniform for that sport. So you can read through here where the rules are, where they're found in the NFHS rule book, and what is allowed and what isn't. And, you know, if you have questions about this, if this is confusing to you based on a specific sport, certainly call and ask. But for example, with volleyball, you know, it talks about whether or not you can change the uniform. It talks about whether or not you can put the pink ribbon somewhere on the uniform. It talks about altering socks, shoes, wristbands, or wearing pink socks, shoes, wristbands. Here for volleyball, they're not covered by NFHS, so it is allowable. Talk about hair control devices, all the ways that we've found to put pink on athletes' bodies while they're participating. One of the things that I know is also identified in some of these websites is the officials, because sometimes I think it's a good idea to contact your officials and let them know that it is a pink game, because they have a stock in that as well. I mean, I don't know that we know anybody these days who doesn't know a soul who's affected by cancer. So they maybe would like to invest in this as well. A lot of them have pink whistles, or, you know, can use pink wristbands or something to commemorate that particular game. And I'm certain that they would love to be informed about it. The other side of this is the fundraising piece and what's allowable. And you have to be careful here as you get into eligibility. This is an example of a letter that was sent about a girls' basketball team, or maybe fabricated situation, but their plan here was to raise money based on the number of free throws that were made through the course of a season. And this is actually not allowable. And the reason for that is because the Board of Control has made it clear that fundraisers cannot be connected to performance in competition. So you wouldn't be allowed to do that, to perhaps get pledges, and somebody pledges $1 a free throw made by your team. Not allowed to do that in a game setting. You could do that in a practice setting. You could say, we're going to hold a practice, and during that practice, our kids are going to shoot free throws, and, you know, you can donate to the number of free throws that they make, but not based in a competition. The other thing that you should be aware of is that you can't allow the student athletes to keep the apparel. If you have a pink jersey that your kids are wearing during the game, they can't just keep that, or a shooting shirt, or some sort of warm-up gear. They can't keep that. It's not legal for them to do that. You could auction it off and you know, make money that way, but you can't keep it. The athletes can't keep it. The other thing that you have to be careful of is if there's photos taken, and if there's photos taken during the event or for the event, and you know, you're promoting a certain maybe a certain entity, those groups cannot take the photos and display them as an advertisement for their business, or for their nonprofit organization. You can't utilize the likeness of your student athletes to promote another business. So you have to be careful about those things. But I think we would all agree that hosting a pink game is something that you can really convey to the players. I think it's a learning experience as well for the kids. They can, you know, play for someone that they know. They can put on their front of their lockers, you know, who they're playing for that game. It's a really good opportunity, a really good learning experience to talk to the kids about playing for something that's bigger than them, and that can make a difference. And I think that's part of the educational process.
Kate, if I could just add one more thing to that, I'll speak on Wade's behalf. As far as the jerseys, I mean, those kids often will want to keep those pink jerseys. You can allow those kids to buy those jerseys at cost. Now remember, a jersey is school property. So like Kate said, you can't just give that to them and allow them to keep them, but you can offer them to buy those at cost if they'd like to keep that commemorative jersey. Second thing I want to just point out that Kate brought up, this is a great example, because I'll tell you, it's a real thing. It happened to me at SPASH. The National Dig Pink organization used our volleyball team's photo to promote the fact that they had raised so much money, and they put it on the brochure of the AVCA National Volleyball Clinic brochure with big, huge Dig Pink, Susan B. Komen Foundation, when my coach saw it, she was actually really excited about it. She thought, wow, how cool is this? But that's a major amateur status violation. And so fortunately, they had used the photo without our permission. They had just taken it off of a website and used it. We contacted WIAA immediately. They gave us some corrective action. We were able to reach out to the Susan B. Komen Foundation. They quickly retracted the brochures. The last thing those organizations want to do is to get any of your athletes in trouble. What you have to keep in mind, though, when you're dealing with those national organizations, again, they're dealing with 50 different states that have 50 different sets of amateur status rules. They don't know what Wisconsin's specifics are. So that's your job to make sure that you know those rules, and call us if you have any questions, because the last thing we want to do is to see any kids' eligibility get jeopardized. And by the way, it all worked out. We were able to correct it. None of our kids were ineligible, but it was a potential big deal. So keep that in mind. It's important stuff.
Remember that. Anything else, Kate?
That's it.
Do you want to add? Great job with everything. Any questions for Kate at all? Thanks very much. Just see if anybody has any questions.
Do the stop share up at the top.
Yep. You can go up and hit stop share. That'll be perfect.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions at all for any of us that are on other topics or other issues that you're dealing with? We're glad to help out. Jeremy, anything? Nope. Devin, Adrian, Steve, Trent. Go ahead, Trent.
Few of you had sent emails asking for some of the documents to be shared. I've been sending those to you, so let me know if there's anything else that you want shared from Cassie or Todd, Kate, Tom, or I. Just shoot us an email. We'll get those back to you.
Hey, Trent, I see your question is you have a co-op for the 2018-19 season. I'm not sure what the question is, but yes, that is most likely almost all of our hockey teams are co-op programs these days.
There we go.
And everything. So, however, we have a school that will likely not continue in 1920. All right. What you have to do for continuing steps is to send in to our office next year a request for a new co-op. And that had the key thing for you to remember is April 1st is the date that has to be in by. I would also just make sure that new school or the school that is being excluded or however that happens, that they make sure that they do not want to be in and that this is something, the direction that you're going with things. I'd also encourage them to look at, if they're interested, other schools in the area where they might be able to continue that co-op if hockey is something their school wishes to continue to have. But it is a request for a new co-op starting with 1920. We do anticipate a lot of those in hockey because we'll be moving to 2 divisions. So April 1st is a real key date for any of the winter sports to make sure that co-ops are in. Just as a friendly reminder, February 1 is the date for fall sport co-ops to be in. And then it is June 1st is it June 1st or May 1st? I'm just have a look for as far as spring. I want to say that it's June 1st, but check those dates just to make sure, because they're the key things, and all of the schools that will be involved have to approve of it by that point and get that into our office, and those go to Dorothy Sankey so that she can handle all of our co-op issues.
Uniform rules.
Uniform rules. If the school purchases the uniforms with players' names on the back, the school cannot give the player to them at the end of the season.
Correct.
Okay, that is absolutely right.
Correct.
They can be sold at what we consider, or what everyone considers to be, a cost basis. What is the general cost of those at the end of a season? You can do that. Now, some uniforms, like in gymnastics, are things that may have some variance to that. Swimming is another one where you have some direct use to them during the course of the year. And so those are two different situations where in gymnastics and in swimming, you can give the uniform to the student. But in other sports, those, especially those with names on the back, they do have to purchase those. Great question. Anybody else?
What if you're cycling uniforms out the next year?
Still have to buy.
Even if you are rotating them out, even when uniforms are being cycled out or rotated out, they still have to be purchased, except for swimming and for gymnastics are the only two that I can think of.
So a common
Go ahead.
question that comes up is, well, what if the booster club bought those uniforms? Can't we just give them to the kids? It doesn't matter how they were purchased. They are school property. So the booster club may have actually paid for those, but really what they're doing is they are donating those to the school. So those are school property. So again, under no circumstances can you just give a uniform to a student athlete at the end of the season or at the end of their career. They have to purchase it. Again, like Tom mentioned, though, you can do that at cost. And so if those uniforms are 5 years old, you can figure through depreciation what those are worth and can probably sell them to kids pretty reasonably. In sports like swimming and gymnastics, volleyball, spandex, tracks, bottoms, oftentimes schools will have the students buy those just right up front. They purchase them themselves, and so they own that uniform. That is one way to kind of get around that rule, I guess, when you got a uniform such as a swim suit that is not going to be shared from year to year. So just have the students buy them right off the bat.
Right. Great questions.
And
Go ahead, Todd.
And I'm just thinking, if you're going to have a football uniform or a basketball uniform with the name on it, wouldn't that be a good way to inform? Because what's the worth of that jersey to the school after that kid's done playing?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, there's lots of Andersons that might come along in some of their schools. Lots of Smiths, but yeah, other than that, Clarks, there's lots of them. But when it comes to Shafransky, nobody wants that last name.
If you're not sure about that, just reach out to Wade's office. He's the expert in that area and can definitely help guide you through letting students purchase their uniforms.
Hey.
They all right?
Yep, Devin, I think hopefully everything's okay there.
We don't know
I
what
think that was
about.
yours. All right.
Could you give
Well, that's a really good question, because in reality, yes.
If their eligibility is completed. So if they're a football player and they're going to play basketball or run track or something, no. But if they are completely done, their amateur status is over.
Exactly.
So yes, you could.
Yep. So especially like spring sports and so forth. Yep. Once a senior completes that baseball season or that tennis season or that track season in the spring, yes, they actually, if they want to take something that, there's nothing that we can do to come back at them for that.
Good questions today, everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Know that we are available anytime for you. We are glad to help out, and just keep giving us calls, asking questions. You've been doing a great job. Know that you are in a group now that is greater than 90 new athletic directors across the state of Wisconsin. So you're not alone out there. Encourage any others that you know of to get in touch with us and reach out. And a friendly reminder that Thursday, October 11th at 1 p.m., we'll have our next Zoom meeting, and you're all welcome. Please feel free to chime in. I will again send you a notice of it and provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions in advance. But all of that is coming up. Also, the WIAA workshops are coming up in November. So just a reminder to get involved and get enrolled in that. Go to Go WIAA is the website that you want to go to, and you can sign up for their workshops and for that whole conference in the Dells, in Wisconsin Dells. And that is November the 11th, I want to say. I'm just going to double check that for you. The 11th through the 13th. November 11th through the 13th this year. We will all be there. We will all be there, and you can ask us questions directly at that time as well. Great job. Keep in touch, and thank you so much. I'm going to turn off the recording at this time. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask away, but otherwise, you're free to go. Have a great month ahead. Good luck with all of October.
End meeting for all then.
Yep.
Stephen